So far in this project, we've gone from these slabs to no slabs to these reclaimed slabs, then those slabs were cleaned to look like new again. So in today's video, I'm going to do the final piece of the puzzle and get the pointing done. I'm going to be using sand and cement to point the slabs, but not in the usual way. I'll be making up a mix and then using one of these piping bags to pipe it into the joints, let it dry slightly and then score it off with a pointing tool. I'll be doing a 3-to-1 mix of cement and building sand and around 1 litre of waterproofer and 1 litre of SBR. You can also add a colour to this, but I'm going to stick with the standard grey. I'm mixing it in a bucket because my mixer is a little bit dirty and you really don't want any lumps or dried hard bits in this mix because it'll block the piping bag. Whilst I'm mixing this, I'm just going to go through a couple of issues that I had, both of which were my fault and pretty daft mistakes. Firstly, when I've done this in the past, it's been in the middle of summer, so I've made the mortar quite wet so that it'll pipe really easily and it also doesn't go off too quickly. Sandstone is notorious for drying out very quickly and it can suck the moisture from the mortar, causing it to dry out fast, losing strength. It's not currently in the middle of summer though, and it was only about 13 degrees whilst doing this, which is fine, but I should have made this first mix a little bit drier. I did rectify this on the next mix though. I also started doing this a little bit too late in the day, forgetting that it was now mid-October and it was dark by 6 o'clock. So I had to finish this with some extra light in, which is less than ideal. Once you've mixed the mortar, you just scoop it into the piping bag and then pipe the mortar into the gaps. One of the main benefits of this method is the fact that you can squeeze the mortar all the way down into the gaps and voids, leaving a really strong pointing mix when you're finished. I've previously used the brush-in resin products and these often fail because the resin sand doesn't fill all of the voids between the slabs. You can see in this shot how wet that the mortar is. It really shouldn't flow this much. The reason you don't want it like this is because it can mark the slabs later in the process. It's not a huge issue because it cleans off easily, but it just adds another step that you wouldn't otherwise have to take. When you keep the mortar drier, it doesn't mark the slabs. You want to overfill all of the joints so that each one is fully filled once you strike it later. If it's warm weather, you can usually start striking the joints that you've started on after you've finished piping the final joints. However, because my mix was wet and it was now pretty cold and dark, I had to wait a couple of hours for it to cure enough. It's ready to score with a pointing tool once the mortar is firm to touch and going slightly crumbly. You want the mortar to be workable still, but when you score it and the excess is pushed to the sides, it should brush straight off of the slabs without leaving any marks or sticking. If you do have any gaps or voids after scoring, you can just fill these with some of the excess mortar. My mortar was a little bit too wet when I was scoring it, but I'd already resigned myself to the fact that I was going to have to go around and wash the slabs with a sponge to get rid of any cement marks anyway, so with time getting on, I just went with it. Once you've scored all the joints, you just need to get rid of the excess. You can scrape it with the side of a pointing tool, use a leaf blower or sweep it up. You can either leave the joints with a rounded look or you can brush them off to flatten them out and give them a more natural look, which is what I'm going for. I gave all the joints a wash with a sponge in the morning to make sure no cement stains were left, and then the new yard area was complete. We're really happy with how this has turned out, and it looks so much better than it did before. It ties in with the rest of the garden better, the bin store is now much cleaner and more accessible, plus the yard area feels much brighter, and most importantly, I don't have to look at my old shoddy work any longer. I wanted to show you how the slabs look when they're fully dry, but the weather hasn't fully allowed that, so here's the best you're getting. Check out the playlist of all the other videos in this series. If you've enjoyed this project, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.